When I say the word Jeopardy, I'm guessing you think of Alex Trebek, Ken Jennings, Daily Doubles, and answering in the form of a question.
A rapper has 2 kids with Rihanna, actor in Dope and 2018's Monster. Hummer.
Who's Jay-Z?
No. Big news for Beyonce if true. No, this is A$AP Rocky.
Till Death 800.
Fair enough. But then we turn off the TV and open a dictionary, and the word Jeopardy has a much darker meaning. It means danger of loss or harm or failure. But here's the twist. For hundreds of years, the word Jeopardy didn't mean danger. In fact, it meant the exact opposite. It meant fairness. It meant an even playing field. So how did a word that described a fair game morph into a word describing life-threatening danger? And how did a cheating scandal in the 1950s lead to the most famous game show on Earth adopting this specific word? Today, on Phrases Explained, we are putting the history of risk, law, and television in jeopardy. To understand this word, we have to first travel back to medieval France. The modern English word jeopardy is an anglicized, smashed together version of a French phrase, Jeu Parti. The first part, jeu, meant game or play. Fun fact, it's actually the same root where we get words like jocular or joke in English. And the second portion, partie, meant divided. Think about how we say parted, for example, in English. So a Jeu Parti was literally a divided game. But what does that actually mean? Well, in the 12th and 13th centuries, this referred to a game of chess or some game of chance where the odds were exactly 50-50. Imagine a chess match where the board is set in such a way that neither player has the advantage. The problem is divided evenly. It's anybody's game. It's an uncertain outcome, but it is a fair outcome. As a small aside, as this is only semi-related, there was actually a genre of poetry in medieval literature called the Jeu Parti. This was essentially a rap battle back in the day. One poet would propose a dilemma, usually about love, and offer 2 opposing solutions. He would take one side and the other poet would take the other side. The idea was it was an even debate. Anyways, as it was originally imagined, being in jeopardy wasn't a bad thing. It just meant you were in a situation where the outcome wasn't fixed. You had a fighting chance. It was basically the medieval equivalent of a coin toss. So, you're perhaps now asking, how did we get from an even chance to mortal danger? Well, to solve this, you have to think about human psychology. If you are in a situation where the outcome is uncertain, where it is truly a 50-50 chance, that creates anxiety. Like if you bet your life savings on a coin toss, the fact that the game is fair or even odds doesn't make it any less terrifying. And over the centuries, the English language began to focus less on the game aspect and more on the uncertainty aspect. By the time we get to Geoffrey Chaucer in the 1300s, the meaning is beginning to slide. His characters speak of being in jeopardy, implying that they are in a precarious position. The logic went like this. First, it is an even game. Therefore, the outcome is uncertain. Therefore, you might lose. And therefore, you are in danger. By the time the 15th and 16th centuries rolled around, the game aspect of this was long gone. The spelling shifted from the French Jeu Parti to the English Jeopardy, and the definition solidified into exposure to death, loss, or injury. The fairness was gone, and only the risk remained. Before we inevitably get to Alex Trebek, we have to make a quick stop in the courtroom. Because for most of history, if you heard the word Jeopardy, you weren't thinking of trivia, you were thinking of prison. I'm talking about double jeopardy. For example, the Fifth Amendment of the US Constitution states, and I quote, "Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb." And this legal concept dates back even further, including to Roman law and the Magna Carta. But why do they use the word jeopardy here? Well, it goes back to that original meaning of the divided game. When you stand trial, you are in a state of uncertainty. The state is trying to convict you, and you are trying to be acquitted. You are in the game, though admittedly that is not a fun game to play. And the law argues that the government, with all of its power, shouldn't get unlimited tries to beat you at that game. If you play the game once and win, meaning you are found innocent, the state cannot force you to play again. So in a legal sense, Jeopardy refers to the specific window of time where your freedom is at risk. Once the verdict is read, the Jeopardy ends. And this was arguably the most competitive usage of the word in the English language. That is, until 1964. It's trivia time. In the 1950s, quiz shows were huge, but unfortunately, some of them were rigged. I know, shocker, right? Shows like 21 were feeding answers to contestants to heighten the drama, and when the public found out, they were furious. The genre basically died overnight. Enter a man named Merv Griffin. In the early 1960s, he wanted to bring the quiz show back, but network executives were terrified. They said, look, we can't do a quiz show because people will think we are giving the contestants the answers. And they had a point, given the recent scandals. So as the story goes, Merv was on a flight with his wife discussing the problem, and his wife had a brilliant, sarcastic idea. She said to him, why don't you just give them the answers? And Merv was like, what? And she said, yeah, give them the answer and make them come up with the question. Merv loved it. He pitched the show to NBC with the title, What's the Question? Not a very creative show title, but it got the point across. And still, despite the format, the network executives were skeptical. After all, it was still just questions and answers, just in reverse order. They felt the game needed more tension. Specifically, the game didn't have enough risk. They wanted the players to lose money if they were wrong. One executive complained that the game didn't have enough Jeopardy! Merv Griffin heard that word and realized it was the perfect title for his show. It sounded dangerous. It sounded exciting. It implied that this wasn't just a memory test. It was a gamble. And ironically, by adding the risk of losing money, Merv Griffin brought the word all the way back to its medieval roots. It became a Jeu Parti all over again, a game of chance, skill, and divided outcomes. And the rest, as they say, is history. So the next time you are checking out a Daily Double, just remember, you aren't simply watching a trivia show. You are watching a true linguistic fossil. You are watching the original Jeu Parti, the divided game, that traveled from French poetry rap battles through the Magna Carta and all the way up to Merv Griffin's airplane ride, just to land on your TV screen. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the fascinating word Jeopardy. If you did, please hit that like button. It helps the algorithm and me more than you know. And let me know in the comments, what common word or phrase should we explain next? I love hearing your ideas, so fire away, let's have them. This is Phrases Explained. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.